And the first question is basically about introducing yourself and telling us about how you found yourself in this particular position in HR, your journey, and how you've actually found yourself. So I know you're into sustainability, but just basically share with us your perspective on HR and diversity in male-dominated sector. And that's part of sustainability anyway, because one of the Sustainable Development Goals, gender diversity.
Thank you ever so much. Can you hear me? Fine. Okay. My name is JJ Yebovi. I'm the MD CEO of Queenet International Limited. It's actually a shipping and marine and logistics company. In my company, for instance, when you look at the fact that it's actually very male-dominated, when you talk of shipping, when you talk of marine and all that, and I found that having the right set of people to work for us, having the right set of people to help us garner that for the women, especially pushing them through the leadership line, we found that we have to sit a lot of time with HR and develop sustainable ways of ensuring that our talents are able to deliver what the company strategies are in terms of where we want to be as an organization. So for us, HR is very key to us. It's very key to the growth of the organization. It's very key to the talents that we hire. It's very key to the leadership role, especially for the women, and ensuring that they stay and imbibe the culture of the organization.
I'll just I'll skip you and then go on to Nolly. Could you just introduce yourself and tell us how you've journeyed into the male-dominated sector and what HR means to you in terms of diversity?
All right. Thank you so much, Ilola. So, my name is Nolly Akpede. I'm an engineer. I've worked as an engineer for 37 years and still killing it. even though they say engineering is male-dominated, my passion really is about encouraging girls into STEM and ensuring that the pipeline of female engineers behind me is kept full and bursting at its seams. So I'm really big on encouraging women to stay in the profession and also girls to come into STEM and ultimately become engineers. Now, my experience with HR. Let me start from personal. So in 1990, when I was desperately looking for a job, I actually saw an opening for an HR position in a big international firm. And I applied and I got the job. And then at that point, I had moved from Port Harcourt to Warri to be with my husband, because it was a young marriage and he was a very fine man. I didn't want women chasing him when he was left alone in Warri. So I moved to secure my marriage. And then I got this job. And I told them when I was at the interview that I really wanted the job because I wanted to be in Warri, and there was a position in Warri. The offer came and they said I should resume in Port Harcourt. I had just moved from Port Harcourt to Warri. I thought, what's wrong with these guys? Anyway, we went back and forth. I tried to get it sorted and eventually I had to decline. And I'm sorry, Evie, but I'm so happy I declined. Because I then went to start working and I found out that HR is supposed to be a strategic partner, as you said, but it's highly undervalued in most organizations. People don't take them seriously. They're not part of the strategy, especially in small businesses. I fully agree with you that we need to take them up in strategy sessions, because if you look at the priorities for any CEO or business owner, at least the top three, out of the top three, one must be people or talent management. In fact, number one for me is people and talent management. The buildings, the equipment don't make the business. It's the people that drive the business. And they are the ones that can kill the business. So I think for me, HR is very important personally, but HR practitioners need to rebrand themselves, re-image themselves, and take themselves a bit more seriously. Before I came to this presentation, I took time to reach out to people that work, upstream, downstream, midstream, high-level females, and the complaint is the same. One lady said to me that HR, I don't know what HR thinks they're HRing. Then the other one said they are diametrically opposed to what the business needs. And then somebody said to me that they drive these policies that only them understand what's going on, and it's really not what is important to the rest of us. Now, those are the bad side. I can tell you that personally, my experience with HR has been the good the bad, and the ugly. Yeah, I was going to play this music from. You remember that 1960s film, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Right, because that is my experience. So I would say that going forward, like you said, there was something you said that really struck me. She said HR digitalization and using analytics. Yes, HR needs to rebrand. It's not about human resources, it's now really about the employee experience. If employees are happy and having a good experience in the company, they will remain, they'll be very productive. I'm going to hone in when you come back on, I don't want to stop, but I want to hone in on what I'm really passionate about, and I want us to discuss it. How to get the women to stay in companies. When we employ them, how to make sure they remain.
We will come back to that.
All right.
We will come back to that. Thank you so much, Nolly. That's really nice and expressive. So I'm going to move on to Ibiene, who would be introducing herself. And because she's in core HR, she's going to tell us her story of how she found herself in HR in a male-dominated sector and her thoughts on HR. Because you just said HR was the good, the bad, and the ugly, and she's going to be able to lend her voice in that area. Thank you so much, Ibiene.
Thank you very much, Lola. So in my current role, what I do currently is I run a business, and it's in the energy industry, and it has actually gone beyond the energy industry because everything is getting integrated, especially because of energy transition. So I do capacity building, consulting, business advice, workforce management for these industries. And even in this current role, which is in core HR, because it's all about development and the workforce, we still have things that are related to HR. So your question on how I found myself in HR is, coincidentally, I studied industrial relations and personnel management at the University of Lagos. But at the time I came in the mid-90s, it was a profession, just like you said, it was personnel management. Many organizations called it admin. So it was really very administrative, And you had lawyers and people that they were not sure what they did. And at that time, because it was admin and it was thankless, everybody where they didn't find what to do with them, they dumped them in the admin department at that time. So it wasn't exactly a department that had a pool of your top talent, and you expected a lot from that kind of department to manage the people. But over the years, HR has changed, which was what was shared in the presentation. And I'll tell you that from 90s up until today, HR has been actually very challenging. But it's important for us because I know many times HR is the face of the organization. But what helped me at one point in time in my career when I worked in the financial services industry, I was moved out to marketing, right? And it helped me see customer service from the external perspective. And so when I came back to HR, right, I now saw HR as customer service to the people. So it was internal customer service. So I have enjoyed human resources. It's all about using your workforce strategically to support. But HR today is not necessarily the role of the HR department. HR is really more about the role of the line managers, the people. Today, unlike previous times when you hear people saying, and the organization should shape my career. Today, you own your career. You navigate your career. You just need an organization that has an enabling environment. So yes, I've done HR. Even in my current role, I still practice HR. And I love HR because for anything you need to develop or deliver in the workplace, you need people. And you need happy people, satisfied, content people to deliver. Thank you.
Ibiene for that. I think she deserves a round of applause there. And I must say, no matter what you're doing in terms of leadership, even in the home, we're managing human resources. So for you to be a fantastic leader, you need to raise leaders to support your leadership growth, and that's still human resources management. I love the fact that she's talked about customer service. I also heard in Ibie's presentation, customer experience. And when the staff in the organization become your customers and you have happy talent within an organization, the performance of the organization is bound to improve. So thank you so much for that. So I'm going to move on to Carol, who's going to introduce herself, tell us about her HR journey and how she found herself in the male-dominated sector, and give us some tips on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Okay, I'm Mrs. Carol Egejuru. Currently, I'm an accredited trainer and MD on Consulting Limited. My incursion into HR is actually very interesting. I started after my youth service as a teacher, and then incidentally I went into marriage early. From the youth service I went into a husband's home. The children started popping out, and then I had to run. I was a career-minded person to excel. Then what do I do? How do I leave these children? I remember then I applied to companies like Shell, like Mobil, and some other banks. I got jobs. Then the fact remains, what happens to these children if I have to leave them because my husband was working in VI? So that now made me, I had to think twice. I said, okay, I'd better give life to these children and give them time to grow, stay with them, nurture them. And then after like 10 years with them, I can now move into the industry. And that was what happened. I was their class teacher. I was their lesson teacher. I was their mom. I was their everything. So when they now grew up to entering secondary school, I now started looking out. What else do I do? How do I augment the current degree that I have? Somehow human resources came in. A friend just came in and said, why don't you enroll in CIPM? So I enrolled in CIPM and then had my certificate as a trained, then it was personnel manager. And but before then, I worked with a company, price management consultants. They were into training, and their focal point was total quality management, which is for me today is life, because that was what assisted me in all that I did. Because in there, you were taught that the customer is the king. Everything you have to do has to be customer oriented. You have to meet the spec of the customer. And then, like my colleague said, there are two customers. You have the internal and external customers. So that philosophy rather assisted me to manage the staff that were under me, because shortly after I got a job in a co-hospital as a personnel manager and total quality manager. So with this combination, it was easier for me to sail through, because I found out something in human resources. Once you engage a staff, you are very nice. At termination, that woman sacked me. They will never give you their salary anyway. So, but all the same, I found that emotional intelligence was very key, because you really have to, even when you're sacking, and not sacking more or less, like disengaging a staff from the company, there has to be that emotional, because you have to feel what that person is feeling, but be able to still do your job in line with the company expectation. So from there, I moved into fast-moving consumer goods sector, manufacturing sector, then the conglomerate. That was where I had my baptism of fire. You know, UTC then, they were this diversity. UTC had 5 key companies then, and then unionized. Imagine dealing with 5 unions at a time. Oh my goodness, it was some other thing. I got my baptism of fire. But then it taught me a lesson, because I remember then all the unions would come to my office and sit down on the chair, sit everywhere. Madam, we are not going. I said, no problem, we all stay here together. You know, so I connected with them, you know, and at the end of the day, I talked to them nicely, because I found out something, that they just need that empathy. You have to, you know, be at the same level with them, appreciate what they're going through, and talk to them. There has to be that communication. So with that, I won them over. And then, along the line, when I came to Dorman Long Oil Servicing Company, as the group HR director. So then, of course, that was where I met the hard guys in the industry. You know, the fitters, the iron benders, let me put it that way, and the welders. But all the same, we all sail through. So in all, HR is actually alignment of company objectives. Once you align HR objectives to company objectives, you're able to perform exactly and render the services as expected by the company in line with company's objectives. Thank you very much.
I think we should give Carol a round of applause. Thank you so much for sharing your very, very interesting career path and journey through from personnel management, CIPM, right through non-technical to technical, and that's so interesting. So the next question I'm going to ask you about tackling discrimination and the sacrifices we expect or have had to make in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I'm going to go to Ivier because we passed through, and then we'll move down right through Noli and then back to Dede. Ivier, over to you on tackling discrimination and the sacrifices women have to make to be successful in male-dominated sectors. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Bilola. So I'm going to take the first part of the sacrifices, right? Or I'm going to start with the part of the question that speaks to sacrifices. I think that to be really successful, if a woman decides that she wants to have a career, then she has to also, ab initio, have determined what her red lines are. So what sacrifices am I willing to make? How far am I willing to go? And how important is career versus family life? And I think that's a mistake that most young women coming into the industry or coming into the business world make. They don't have those honest conversations with themselves before they start. And so when demands are placed on them to sacrifice, because I don't know what I'm willing to sacrifice and what I don't want to sacrifice, there's confusion and tension. I believe it was Noli that had said she took a decision when she had to move from Warri to Port Harcourt, that, or the other way around, that she wasn't going to do that. It wasn't, something she had to turn down. And it's because she knew what her red line was. To become successful in the corporate world, there will be sacrifices. The important thing is, one, you determine what sacrifices you're willing to make, and two, you become very creative in terms of how you want to juggle the two if you decide that it is a career. I have someone who had shared with me an experience. So one of the sacrifices she had to make, she worked long hours. It was a new company at the time, and she had young children. And she was always missing bedtime. She was always missing doing homework with her children. And one day a friend of hers advised her and said, why don't you bring the children to the office after close of business, when they close from school, and do their homework with them in a quiet place within your office. That way you've helped them with homework, you've bonded with them, and then they can go home. And whenever time you get home is fine because you've had your time with your people, with your children. I think that that's a very brilliant way of adapting to the sacrifices that you have to make. There are also times when, as women, we don't want to go for dinners after work. We don't want to go for the social bit after work. But you have to show up. It's the frequency of your showing up that you need to then determine. But you cannot alienate part of the work experience and expect that you will progress. You have to know, once again, to my first point, what it is you're willing to sacrifice, and you then do it. So the second part was the issue.
Clean discrimination.
Discrimination. All right. So I think that the thing that I have found in my experience that trumps discrimination is competence. If you come into the workplace and you equip yourself with the skills that you need, and you have the confidence to say, I know my stuff, this is my space, when discrimination comes, they would realize that they're confronted with a very capable person that has not only the confidence in herself and her experience and her knowledge, but also can stand up and deliver value to the organization.
So much. I think that's quite instructive. So I would say competence and confidence. Yes, a combination of competence and confidence that trumps discrimination.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pass that on to Nolly because she's actually worked in engineering, and on the technical side, there's quite a lot of discrimination. And I also know she was president of the Association for Professional Women Engineers in Nigeria. So I'm going to allow her share her experience on discrimination and sacrifices. Thank you, Nolly.
Okay, thank you so much. Let me start off from where Ivy left it off. So competence, confidence, and the ability to speak up. You just need to speak up and tell them that you are able and capable. Step up when the need arises and step back when you have to. You need to understand that there's a balance. It's not every time you need to speak up and make noise. There's sometimes you just keep quiet, watch them, observe, and then you speak up. Now, my experience working with a lot of women and being a woman in engineering has been that in some cases, people like my work, but they don't like me. And I don't care. You don't need to like me. No, the problem with some women is that they want to be liked. I don't have to be liked. I would love to be liked, but I'm just here to do the work. And I'm going to do it really well. I'm going to be extremely competent. I'm going to reskill and upskill myself. And I'm going to step up, ask for work, and deliver. So that's where it's at with women in this male-dominated field. The other thing about women, now that I'm a business owner, I have a manager who is a man in one of my small businesses. And one day he said to me, "Oh, madam, I don't want us to recruit a woman for a particular role." And I'm like, "Why?" He said that the candidates that have come, they are married women. Even though they are young, they will soon start having children, and then they will leave the work. And I'm like, but this is the guy that had known me for like 25 years. He knew that I had 3 children while working for others. And I still did the work, and I was very competent, and I progressed in my career quite rapidly. He said to me, "Madam, they are not like you. Can you imagine? I'm the owner of the company. I'm a woman, and you are discriminating in my presence against women." So I said, "You know what? We're going to employ them, and we're going to make it work for them." Now that takes me to something that I'm really passionate about, and I was talking to my daughter, who is a managing partner of a law firm, about the Nigeria Labour Act. I think it's 1974. Maternity leave. And I really want to just let us know what it says. So I told Kinevo to do that research for me and give it to me. And the Nigerian Labour Law, section 54, subsection 1A, says that a woman shall have the right to leave her work if she produces a medical certificate given by a registered medical practitioner stating that her confinement will probably take place within 6 weeks. First of all, I don't know what confinement means, but I now found out that it means something to do with onset of your labor. That's old English, so that's outdated. In short, what it says is that basically women are entitled to 12 weeks maternity leave. If you have been working for 6 months prior to that, you are entitled to 50% of your wages. Now, this portends many problems, and I experienced some of these things when I was working for others. It then means that there's a lot of discretion for the organization to decide whether they're paying you or not. The big companies would interpret it in a nicer way. Smaller businesses can do basically what they like, and that's what's happening with a lot of small businesses. So the women are being oppressed. Some don't even get the 12 weeks, and some will get really just that 50% because that is the minimum required by law. Now, with the millennials and Gen Zs, the women are insisting that the men become more involved in rearing and nurturing children. And some of the men actually do want to be involved. But our labor law doesn't recognize paternity leave and parental leave in general. So in the companies where I have influence, either I own or I'm a majority partner, I insist and we have paternity leave. In Compass Mentis, paternity leave is 15 days, and in my own small businesses, it's 10 to 15 days. Now, why is this important? We need to get the men more involved in bringing up and nurturing children so that the women can go back to work and then this discrimination will reduce. If you say women are 50% of the workforce, why are we discriminating against that 50%? And actually, some men really want to be involved, but they don't have the opportunity because the law doesn't allow them. So what I really want is advocacy. I want us to step up and do something about this labor law, especially when it comes to maternity leave. So the HR practitioners, they can tell you that a lot of things have been done around compensation and benefits and remuneration, to improve that, because NLC and all the labor people are always talking about money. What about this maternity leave provision? I remember when I first started working, maternity leave then was 6 weeks before and 6 weeks after. So if you had a child that came early, like I did, you had only 6 weeks after. In fact, I had a premature baby. She was 1.7 kilograms, and somebody wanted me to go back to work 6 weeks after I had that child. I didn't say anything. No. At the 6-week date, I carried that child in all her swaddling clothes and took her to HR. Removed the swaddling clothes, held her up like this, and I said to the HR guy, "Do you really want me to leave this person at home and come back to work?" He said, "Oh, madam, it's the policy." And I said, "Well, the policy doesn't work. It's unreasonable and it's discriminatory." Anyway, to cut a long story short, we managed to fight together with the HR ladies to ameliorate all that, and going forward it has changed. But let us look at the law. Let us try and see what we can do to influence a change in that law so that it will be more beneficial to women and we can get them working, and more productive in the work environment. And let us encourage parental leave. Yes, so it's not just about the women. The men need to be involved, and a lot of them want to be involved. Let us give them that opportunity. Even if it's something as small as wanting to take your wife or your partner to the hospital, when she's about to deliver, or staying at home with her for a few days after. We just don't have that. So please, let us try. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nolly. That's really informative. I'm just going to move on to Ibiene to share her opinions and ideas on discrimination as well as sacrifices and how that has affected diversity in male-dominated sectors. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ibilola. I think it's interesting and it would be good to build on what Ibie and Nolly had shared, because it's a conversation that needs to go here. And why do I say that? So, listening to what Nolly just shared, I think, and this is my perspective as heading HR, what you find out that when we talk about supporting women in the workplace, I find out that the role and the expectation of most people in the organization, just like what Nolly has shared, is HR should be that advocate that represents the entire organization and sort of is the voice that will represent and speak to leadership, whether at the highest level or the lowest level. Now, so using the example of what she said about policies and all of this and discrimination, you would find out that today, and to be honest with you, I'm fair, I would not want to make general statements, because in today's present time, there are a lot of different organizations at different levels, and it's not just the large organizations that are doing things right. The small organizations are also doing things right. Some large organizations are still doing a lot of things that are very disappointing. However, what has helped recently is with the change in the entire world, with the recent generation, post-COVID, the workforce, the employees are more vocal, and there is a whole talent migration, and so everybody is fighting retention, and you want to retain the right. So this is the right time to make those changes in those policies. But the challenge we have today is, it would surprise you sometimes that the head of HR could be a man and is making a case on maybe this maternity leave, and the head of the company may even be a woman, and it may be the person that is resisting that change. We sit in these roles, and also we're seeing cases where some men, because they are beginning to remember the experience when their wife was pregnant, or are seeing that they are having a lot of daughters, so they are even the ones even doing the advocacy, and the HR person is a lady and is telling you, why do you need to, is the policy. So why am I saying this? Everybody today, and everybody sitting in this place, either at leadership level, whether even you are at the board level, you really need to start taking time to say, what policies do you have? And I'm very happy today that there are a lot of things you want to do with sustainability reports, ESG, that they ask you for these policies. A lot of us in HR, a lot of global organizations would ask you for your policies. And when they see that your policies are not friendly or aligning to the SDGs, they have a problem with you. So I beg here that every single one of us here have a role, to play. It's not entirely HR's responsibility. Like Nolly said, people should speak out more. This is the right time for you to speak because your employers need the right people. And even the people at if you're sitting at a board level, you should even be asking for those policies. If you're in that subcommittee, if you're the management team, you don't really need to go with Nigerian labor law that says, 3 months. You are free to make it 5 months. I remember an encounter when I went to the last organization, it was Disco, when we had to put paternity leave. A lot of the men were very happy because you find out that in Nigeria, it's very macho to sit down and think you're not helping your wife. But when you put a policy that shows that you should help you, they were all excited and they could talk about it. So my point here is that everybody has a part to play in making this work. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ibiene. That was really well put. So I'm not going to overflog the issue of sacrifices and discrimination. I'm going to move on to culture because Carol is a seasoned CIPM, a person who's gone through different organizations from technical, non-technical, so she can really lend her voice in the area of culture. How do we increase diversity, equity, and inclusion and have ESG compliance around cultural change? And how can we make the environment more gender-friendly? And how do we minimize the Japa syndrome and leverage technology to ensure that people can work from home, work from anywhere, and we get the best of people within the work environment and have engagement, improved engagement and diversity in the workforce? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Like I said earlier on, I'm a TQM person. The most important thing is those staff, what do they need? You have to identify their needs. You have to connect with them emotionally. You have to feel their pain. You have to be part of their joy. And how to assist you to do this, there has to be needs assessment. You have to find out what the issues are. Drop a survey because we are now in data. It's not just, they said no. A survey that will give you at least, it could be anonymous, where they have to open up to you to tell you what their needs are. And then talking about Japa syndrome, we have to listen in the silence. What do I mean by that? That staff is there working silent. You have to find out what he or she is thinking about, what's going on in his or her mind. Or coming to work, you see that he's not smiling or she's not smiling. It's for us to find out what the issue or issues are. Encourage them to open up to you, because those are your work too. When they open up to you, now be able to know exactly what the issues are and now know how to resolve them. Mentorship and sponsorship program. We have to get that installed in the company because it's very, very key that they look up to a leader or a manager, systems that will assist them to reach their goals. And then what of leadership development systems or processes? We have to plan our succession planning from day one. So with that, you equip them with what they need to get those jobs done and to be able to function effectively at a higher level when there's vacancy or when the need arises. Flexible training options is there. They could do it online, it could be in person, but the most important thing is you're giving them the required skills to get their jobs done, and that gives them that satisfaction. I mean, if somebody does a job well, I tell your staff, this is a job well done. please, that person will smile if there's something, at least start from there. And that shows that that person is satisfied, and you're equally satisfied with what he or she has done. Then networking opportunities, like conferences like this. It could be one of the, how do I put it now, incentives, to come and be exposed, to some other modes of doing things, and also meeting other people too that will assist them. Then what also employee assisted programs. When I was in Dorman Long, I may have to really mention this. A staff came to me and said, "Ma, please, my wife wants to commit suicide." I said, why should she commit suicide? That she's frustrated. I said, okay, I had a meeting because that was on a Friday, but I had to give up my Saturday. Say, invite your wife to my office. 2 of you should come on Saturday when we can meet and talk. If I wasn't that open, he wouldn't have told, because it wasn't my department. And I found out what the issues were. And we got that sorted out. And they left home happy. You see? So we really have a lot to do. It's not just to carry paper and write, no. We have to connect with our... so counseling is equally part of it. Remote control. A staff has a problem. Now please. So how flexible hours could come in. Such as options now. COVID has made it easier for staff to work from everywhere, anywhere. Remote. Okay, you could go. It's all bargain, like a contract. You will do this and you give me this. This is what we have to do. Okay, fine. When you get there, give me some number of hours and have this other time for yourself at home. And that staff will end up coming back happy for the fact that he or she has been considered and a need taken care of. Performance feedback is very key. Now, how am I doing? How was my assessment? Be factual about it. These are the areas of improvement. So with that, it will help a great deal to manage our staff and manage them effectively. Thank you very much.
Please let us give Carol a round of applause for the various tips and nuggets she's giving us for culture improvement and staff engagement, as well as having a more vibrant environment. And thank you so much for reaching out to the personal issue around committing suicide. Sometimes HR really requires emotional intelligence to the greatest and highest level. So I'm going to pass this on to Dede to talk about sustainability, DEI, and culture before we go around on the way forward. Thank you.
So in terms of sustainability, one of the things that we do sort of in my organization is to ensure that we put in place policies, like Diana was saying, put in place policies that enable our employees to thrive within the system. Some of the things we also do is to ensure that the HR collects data. What are people saying about us? Because again, in the world of technology, a lot of people are saying all sorts of things about you. And then you wonder, she was here yesterday, she's gone. And that's because they've said, oh, if you spend only 3 months in that organization, they will promote you. So, that's all the reviews that are going on. So you employ, you do all that, and then the next 3 months they're gone, and you'll be wondering what's happening. So we've had to look inward and say, what is going on? How can we collect data? What can we do to ensure that our employees do stay and are happy staying? Not just because we want them to be, to do what we want them to do, but we also have to be relevant in their lives also, like Igatu also said, alluded to. You need to know what's going on, what are their pain points, how can we assist them. A very good example, someone in my office recently, she got married and she was very worried about the fact that, she could get pregnant very quickly, what's going to happen, and all that. And I had, we had to tell, don't worry, we'll take it one step at a time. And I told HR, look, if you have to change the policy in order to accommodate certain things, you have to be flexible. She went off, had a baby, came back, she had 3 months at home, and she was, what should we do? I said, look, bring the baby here. And she was like, really? I said, yes, bring the baby to the office. we would take it from there. And she was very glad, and the rest of the staff thought, oh my goodness, so we can actually do this, so the company can actually listen to us. And we thought we'd have babies screaming in the office, but look, sometimes I walk in, I'm like, is there a baby in this office? It's not there. And that shows the dynamic way that HR has been able to help us. Like I keep saying that it doesn't have to be cast in stone. We have to be open-minded about everything we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dede, for that, and thanks for what you're doing. I think I would like to just have a round of sharing what you think. How could the men and the male folk in the system, in male-dominated sectors, what should they do differently, and how could they promote, support, and encourage diversity? And this could be on the home side, as well as in the office or in the supply chain. What would we like to see more of from our male folk as sponsors, he for she, or allies? I'm quite flexible. Who would like to? Viviane, would you like to go first? Thanks.
Very interesting question, and it's good that you made it freestyle so we can share from my experience. So today I like being very real and contemporary in today's situation. So when we talk about support from the male folk, diversity, inclusion, just having more women in the workplace, I would say that where we are today, we don't have the opportunity of having, before it used to be the employer's world, where people would say there are a lot of people in Nigeria, half of them are unemployable, so you cherry pick. Today, you can't even find those people today. So the first thing is that organizations now need to appreciate the fact that you have that war for retention. It used to be war of talent. For me, it's really more of retention. When you have those people, you've invested in them, you've even hired them, how do you keep them? So the first thing is, you don't even need to think about an archaic or dated or outdated labor law or anything. You need to shape the culture that would work for your organization. You need to do a lot of, just like what Didier said, you have to do a lot of pulse checks, surveys to know what they need, because every organization is different. In every sector is different. So you need to know what works for you, and you shape the right culture that works for you. Now, when you come to men supporting more women in the workplace, the reality is that a lot of these decisions and ideas come from experiences that form biases. Because you've worked with one lady, she may have been lazy, just like any other male staff that could have been lazy. You just have this bias that every woman is lazy. Meanwhile, I was happy when Nolly said that, because there was a common statement we used to say when I was in the banking sector, and they used to say, one pregnant Jane is better than two lazy Johns. Meaning, because that lady has worked so well while she worked with you, that even when she's pregnant, she's still working. And so where I worked that time, when you wanted to recruit pregnant women, the person will tell you if she performed very well, it doesn't make any difference. And pregnancy is just a short-term thing. So you have some men that support women. So when you are in an organization where there might be biases, you need to keep educating and enlightening people and doing a lot of these courses to let people know that it's important that we embrace all of this. And also women in the organization too. And you also have to have policies that consciously and intentionally get more women going through your pipeline. Even when you recruit and you are recruiting, you need to go out of your way as an organization, not just as HR, to ensure that you are bringing more women in to the workplace and also supporting them up to the very top. Because in the paper that was delivered at the beginning by Lucy Okeke, she talked about at the very high level, we don't have a lot of women in leadership. We need to do a lot of things, right? You need to support women. Sometimes we have challenges where organizations have branches and locations outside Nigeria. When a woman is the best person for that role, and you ask the woman, she can't even go home to tell her family that she's being posted. So there's a lot that everybody needs to do So we don't just pay lip service, we're actually doing something about it, and everybody has a role to play. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ubiene. That was fantastic feedback. I know it's very, very rare for a woman who is on cross-posting to have her husband who has a job to go along with her and the children to the new geography. And so these are some of the challenges that women would have to face. It's more likely for a man who is cross-posted to take his family along. Yeah. Very rare for husbands and children to follow a mother who is cross-posted. So I'm going to take this to Ivie to please share her thoughts in this area, and then we'll move on from there. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. So everything that Ivie has said will definitely go a long way in helping us, get the support we need from men. I just want to add a couple of things. The first is, for our men to support us, they need to start being conscious of the language that they use. So they need to use inclusive language when they're discussing in meetings, or when they're even speaking, to women colleagues. Using let me give an example. Men tend to use football as an analogy whenever they're talking, like, we want to talk about teams. Okay, so who is an Arsenal fan? And there's some women that really don't care about football, So little things like using language that is inclusive would go a long way to help us in the workplace. In terms of creating a safe space, so we talk about, it's a touchy subject. We don't talk about sexual harassment and all the things that go along with it. But it would really go a long way if our men help us create a safe working environment, a safe space where people can work and not feel intimidated, either by the aggressiveness that is naturally a men trait or a man trait, just helping us feel safe within the workplace that we're all coexisting in. And I think it would also be very useful if our men sponsor women. So there's this concept of the men's club and the men sponsoring one another and sponsoring younger men. But I have seen in my work experience men that have taken interest in very bright young women who are coming up in the organization and have sponsored them. And I used to be very naive when I was younger. And I would say my work would speak for itself, and I don't really need anyone speaking for me. But I can tell you for a fact now that I understand the importance of the people that sit around the table. And it will be naive of any woman within the workplace to feel that they don't need a sponsor, be it male or female. But it would be really nice if our men, help us and sponsor us in terms of opportunities and when they arise within the workplace.
Fantastic. I think that's really nice. I think we need male sponsors, because if you have a room full of men and there are old boys clubs working in those rooms, we really need a male ally or a sponsor, or he for she, to open the doors to us women to get into the leadership league. And sometimes we may have to get involved in Man U, Arsenal, Chelsea, and get to know. Actually, my son was advised recently in the banking world in England to get involved in cricket, that the sponsors for leadership position in the banking world in the United Kingdom are cricketers and cricket fans. So I think it's just the politics of the career, and in male-dominated sectors, we may have to learn a little thing, a bit of football and all the things, racing and golf and all those stuff things.
Most definitely. I'm just saying in terms of the language that I was just using as an example, but definitely you have to play the game.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm going to pass this on to Nolly to give us her feedback on how do we get more men. And that's very important, because you did mention girls in STEM and engineering, women in engineering. So this is really important. So this is the opportunity to talk about your passion.
Right, okay, thank you. So for us engineers, there are definitely more men in engineering than women. So invariably, we do need the men to mentor us and sponsor us. In my career, I've only ever had male sponsors, to tell you the truth. And that has worked well for me. But I'd like to talk a bit about what Ije said concerning harassment. We don't talk about it, but it's there and it's real. And at every single level of our careers, for real. And we need to speak about it amongst the women and give ourselves the opportunity to talk about it and get HR to help us to resolve those issues. I mean, at the age of 48, a manager in a company, and some guy comes to my office and is staring at me from my head to my toe, practically undressing me with his eyes. So I stared back at him and undressed him with my own eyes as well. And I said to him, no, don't do that. It has to, and you address it in real time so you get rid of it. But for the men, we really would appeal that you sponsor us, assist the women to develop because they are willing, they are able, and they are capable. We're not asking for you to bend the rules or make it easier for us to get there, but recognize us. The way you recognize your fellow men, recognize the women in the room as well, in your departments, in your teams as well. And also understand our issues and our challenges and our perspectives. Like Ivy said, we the women have to also define our boundaries and let them know ahead of time. Everywhere I go to, when I'm working with men, I tell them there's some things that, there's some boundaries that I will not allow you to cross. When my children were still young, it was about going to inter-house sports, parents' consultations. I will tell you that I will go to parents' consultation because I need to be there. But when I'm on the job, I will do the work. When it was time for holidays, I will let you know ahead of time that this is it. I need to be away for 2 weeks because there's a family holiday coming up. The men do that. Why are the women afraid to step up? But in male-dominated fields like in engineering, we definitely need your support. I will encourage as many men as possible to give women the opportunity to grow and develop their careers to leadership positions. And there's something Ibiene said that is very important. The women, we need to help each other. Sometimes we are the problem. In fact, many times we are the problem. And some of us feel that because we had a hard time getting to where we are today, we shouldn't make it any easier for anybody coming behind us. It doesn't work that way. How are things going to improve if we don't make things easier for the next set of human beings? And the Jackpot syndrome will continue because the younger people are impatient. They want new experiences every day. So I'm going to appeal to HR because HR we're talking about. Try and walk a mile in our knickers. Immerse yourself in the business. Understand what it is that will make us make the employee experience better, and help us to retain the talent within the organizations. Then for the business owners, take your HR into strategy. It's not a service organization. There is strategic function. They're your strategic partners. When you're building business strategy, build also the HR strategy as part of the business strategy so that you attract the right people, you're able to train the right talents and retain them. And then for the business owners, culture-wise, know what your company is, who you are, what you stand for, and you, the business owners and leadership, be the talent magnets. Walk the talk. If you want people to look corporate, as they say in Nigeria, and they want everybody to be looking sharp, you have to look sharp for the rest of the organization to look sharp. You cannot come to work in flip-flops and expect everybody else to come dressed formally. So walk the talk, be the talent magnets, and when you do get these talents, work with your HR on the strategic side to develop and retain. And HR, please, let the decisions and the recommendations be based on some kind of, like you said, analytics. Let us work with data so that we can help the organizations to have a good employee experience and retain the right talent. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think she deserves a round of applause. I think there's so much we can all do, and it's got to be a partnership. Men have to support women, and women have to support men as well. And diversity is everybody's business because teamwork together, each achieves more. We've got to pool resources together. So I'd just like us to look at the way forward and what sort of advice would we like to leave with the audience so that when they go back to their various offices and businesses, they could make a difference. What would we like to see people stop doing? What would we like to see people start doing? And what would we like to see more of? And I think I'll start with Carol because that's a good place to start.
Thank you very much, Doctor. To cut it short, we have to establish metrics and benchmarks. You see, the office is not just, how do I put it now? We have roles and responsibilities. The organization has a focus and a strategic focus, so we have to go along that line. So the men and women were all together. When God created the human being, God created man, God created the woman. The man, we've been told, as the head. That the woman is the neck, and it's where the neck, where the head wants to turn to, is the neck that moves that neck. So we all have our roles and responsibilities, but the most important thing is this: what are we expected to do? What are our goals, our responsibilities? What are the skills required to get this job done? Are you engaging somebody because he's a woman or a man, or this person has the skills and competencies to get this job done? It's an official setup, and like I said earlier, the company has its goals and responsibilities to actualize exactly its strategic objective. So, apart from establishing the metrics and benchmarks, we should identify the champions and allies. We have to play the politics, it's all part of it. So who are those that are like Shell, for example, SNEPCO, had the first woman MD in 60 years. So, and incidentally, there were not all women there when that decision was being made. Men were there and supported her, and she would have had what it takes to handle that particular position. So it's important we are properly skilled, our staff, get them properly skilled to take on leadership positions wherever the issue would come up. Tailor the message, let it be such that inclusion and diversity is an innovation and also is part of it. And then emotional intelligence, you can't run away from it if you have to manage human beings, if you have to manage human resources to effectively achieve the expected goals and objectives. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Carol. I think we're having to round up right now. The next panel are getting ready. So we'll just have quick responses in terms of what we must stop doing, what we must start doing, and what we would like to see more of. I'll move on to Dede, Ivie, Nolly, and end up with the DNA. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Amal. Okay, so one of the things I would love to see us stop doing, or HR trying to address, is the unconscious biases that we have within the workplace. Being able to see it, tell people, to recognize that, look, from your sourcing the talent onto onboarding, are you monitoring that process? Are you seeing whether there are unconscious biases in hiring and all that, and eliminating all that? So that's very important, that's very key, because you get into a certain department and you find that all of them are men. And in my industry, for instance, because we have to go on board vessels, when those vessels coming, and you find that everybody in operations, that they're only men, there's no female there. So you realize there's an unconscious bias whilst they were hiring, because they think, it's only a guy that can do this job. I kind of remember very quickly when I first started my career, and I told my boss, I need to go and board a vessel, because we're shipping agent, I need to go and board a vessel offshore. And he was very open-minded about it. I said, oh yeah, go. I went all the way, I got to Eket, and I got to the oil company, and they looked at me and said, where are you going? I said, I'm going on board the vessel. Okay, go now. And I never did. Because again, you could just look at me and like, no, you're not fit to do that because I'm female. So I tell, since then, that was the beginning of my career. So when I got started my own business, I told all of them, look, this is male dominated. I don't want you to do any, sort of hold back any woman. If she wants to go on board the vessel, please pick her up. Please let her know how she can do that and let her go. So it's important. Those are the things that I want to see. Those changes, being able to put the women there, decision making and all that in the business. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think that's important. And I must say some of the assets in the oil field do not have provision for females. I think on FPSOs where they have limited bed space, and the chances of them finding a specialized talent that is gender oriented is another challenge. So there's a lot of work to be done around this. Absolutely. And I think it's good when women are running businesses in the oil and gas industry, because now they can actually influence the opportunities that present themselves to other women. Thank you so much. So I'll just go on to EVA.
I think one of the things I would love for us to continue to do and deepen is advocacy and sponsorship of not just female talent, but young talent that you see have, the potential to becoming great leaders. Just spending some time with them and helping them develop. Something I would like us to stop doing is to abdicate all responsibility to HR in terms of managing your people. It is not a function that just should be left to manage the entire workforce. I think Ibiane had touched on that a number of times. Managing your people is the responsibility of every leader and every line manager. There's a saying that, I think it's in Shell that they say, your line manager is the Shell that you know. They don't really advocate all the responsibility to HR. So I want everybody to be responsible for their teams, for encouraging their teams, for coming up with flexible work arrangements, because you are the closest one to your team. And so you're the one who feels their pain points, and you're the one that needs to be able to be flexible in terms of how you approach the issues and not always say, oh, HR. The other thing is that we need to keep in mind that policies are a guide, they're not an absolute. And every situation calls for a different reaction. And both the HR teams and executive management of companies need to understand that they need to be flexible. The future of work is here. The generations that we have in the organization now are multidimensional, and each generational group has a need that needs to be addressed to ensure that we retain them and we develop them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ivy. That was so well put. And then I'll just move on to Nolly.
Okay, thank you so much, Bilola. So, one last quote. Treat your employees right so they won't use your internet to search for a new job. That's a Mark Zuckerberg quote. And that's what's really happening a lot. So right from the, I think from the recruitment side, we need to, we that are the business owners and who can influence the policies, should make an intentional effort to ensure that we're getting males and females, in for the recruitment exercises, first of all. So I met somebody last year who said to me that in his organization, he was the MD. He said when they bring the list of the shortlisted candidates for recruitment, he would check, and if it wasn't 50-50 men and women, it wasn't going through. Yes, and this is quite a big company, and actually he was doing that. So it's what we can learn from. So at the recruitment level, first of all, let us make sure that we're getting as many women as men, and in some cases I would suggest even more women than men, because where you already have 90% of men in a particular function and 10% women, then we should be looking at getting more women in. Right now in Compass Ventures, the law firm my daughter manages, we have more women than men. So the recruitment process is looking at getting more men than women into the organization at this point. And then give the women the opportunities as they arise. When you're a man that's managing a process, don't think only that it's only a man that can do the job. Give the woman the opportunity. You might think she might not be able to go offshore. Have you asked her? Have you given her the opportunity to say yes or no? Give them the opportunities. Then for HR function, we as leaders, when we see that we have high potential staff. Let us also propose them to HR so they can help to invent the HR function. And as we've all said, HR is not a function just for, or let me say, employee management or talent management is not for just the HR department. We should all be involved, and we all are. But let's give HR their place at the table, at the strategy level, so that we can have the right strategy for talent attraction, retainment, and development in the organization. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just allow Ibiene chip in before we hand over to you. Thank you. I'd love your parting words, please.
Okay, thank you. I'll be brief. Okay, so for me, I think because of the world we're in today, very, very wild, complex, and even for leaders and MDs, they're dealing with the same problem: competitive, high cost of operations, people issues, technology. So I would say that this is the time to relook at your HR. Who is in that HR space? Just like Igwe said, HR is not just the responsibility of the HR department. And invest in your HR. Previously, it used to be the head of marketing and finance that were the most important people. I would say today, your head of HR is very important, and you should invest in that person. Now, the other point I would like to make is, so even in investing in that, actually, look at your policies, just like a lot of things Igwe and Molly have shared. The other thing I would like to say is that if you're a woman here today and everything is being said about supporting you and helping you, take advantage of the networks that exist today. You have the Women in Energy Network, you have WeOrg that is also here. Those organizations and associations have women that have gone through all of this. You would have mentoring, you would have everything, coaching, support, stories. So take advantage of this. Today, your career is in your hand. You shape your career and you get to where you want to. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ibiene. I'd just like to say a big thank you to my fantastic panelists. We have over 125 man-years of experience here. I hope you've enjoyed our conversation. And I would also like to mention that we have women networks such as the Women in Energy Network, WeOrg, WIMBIS, Commonwealth Business Women's Network, We Connect, Vital Voices. So please tell your daughters, your sisters, your wives who want to be participants in the male-dominated sector in the oil and gas industry, energy space, to go online and search for women networks so that they are well empowered to excel in male-dominated sectors. On behalf of my panelists and myself, I'd like to say thank you so much for your attention, and I hope you learned something. I learned a lot.
And on behalf of us all, we'd like to say thank you to Dr. Amao for anchoring this session with such precision and making sure we got the gist of it intentionally. Please appreciate her and each and every one of them. Would ask you to rise for a group photograph right here.